morning, everyone. How are you? Oh, picking up. How's everybody doing? It's a nice day here in California. Staying home as much as I can. Safe. Hope everybody's good. Hit me with some questions. We'll get going. Hey, y'all. Picking up. I like it. Who wants to start? Don't be afraid. Don't be bashful. Don't be bashful. Hit me with some questions. Anybody else playing on a pad at the moment? No. No pads. Hey, Martin. How are you? Thank you, Chris. This is my 2003 haircut, flashback, and also my coronavirus, I'm not leaving the house too much haircut. Figure, why not make it easy? Summertime. How you guys doing? What's everybody working on? Anything in particular? Recording or just practicing wise? I've been working on, I'll just start rapping. I've been working on some kind of Afrobeat stuff. I'm definitely not an Afrobeat. Good morning. Kalaba. Bala. I know we went through this before. I got to remember. Watching for my work. Any short-term music goals? Yes. Well, music goals or drumming goals? I'll tell you both. One, I have a project with my friend Jeremy Little in Nashville, and it's kind of Anthony. Sorry, man. One of these weeks I'll remember that. I have a project with my friend Jeremy Little in Nashville, and it's kind of like a prog rocky thing, but it's not like bonkers prog. It's more like early Genesis prog. And he's a pretty rad singer. So we have about 4 tunes that are pretty close to done. We're working on a 5th. And it's very slow moving. It's about a year in the process right now. And I'm mixing it, which is a challenge, but it's also really great. And we're hoping to get it done. I don't know. We don't really have a deadline because, he writes a lot and we're just working on it. So anyway, that's kind of my musical project that's happening, especially since I'm not playing with any people at the moment. And then, so yeah, back to like what I'm practicing. I'm working on some kind of Afrobeat stuff and just using right, left as the basis of the beat and really doing it at tricky tempos, like lower. No, I'm not talking about like fast doubles, not like that, just like, so having that be the beat and getting the kick drum to land in the right spots and really trying to make it groove. That's kind of that's kind of what I'm working on. I'm spending a lot of time on that whenever I can. How about you guys? What are you practicing? If it's easy to put into text at all. And the reason I'm doing that thing is really just to keep my doubles nice and open and even, especially in my left hand. It's really a challenge for my left hand to. You want to talk about recording, Martin? Right? Isn't that really what we're here for? It's really a challenge for my left hand to not be slamming backbeats and just keep it nice and open and keep it grooving. All right. How do I deal with phase stuff when I record with a lot of mics, like 2 or 3 bass drum mics? Right. How do I deal with it? I just check it a lot. If possible, if I'm using like 3 mics, so let's say Anthony, I'll get to that one in a second. So with 3 bass drum mics, presumably 2 are outside mics, right? Maybe a sub, kick, and a FET. And I just make sure they're literally, if this is the head, those 2 mics are definitely, in the same spot, right? So those are definitely going to be in phase because the sound is hitting at the same time. And then the inside kick, it's technically it's going to be earlier, but if you just flip that phase on there, I mean, it's pretty obvious, especially with kick drums, when it goes out of phase. So just make sure those 2 outside ones are in phase, and then you just got to flip the inside one and make sure it is. That's it. I mean, and then for me, the next thing that's usually tricky on the phasing thing is the mono overhead, because sometimes I don't have it exactly the same height as the stereo overheads, and I just make sure it sounds good. I'm not always worried about the timing of it as long as it sounds good. And I'm sure there's different theories about getting the times of phasing correct. But the way I think about it is if you're like, as a human being and you're standing in front of a drum kit, if we were able to make a micro snapshot of like it when it gets to your ear, it's the same as a microphone. It's not going to get there all at the same time. Like the snare drum is going to be milliseconds late, right, from the kick drum, because the kick drum is closer, right? And that's really what we're looking at in like Pro Tools or whatever. So, and it all sounds fine when we're out there. So I figure if it's all technically in phase, then it should sound good. Does that help, Martin? Does that make sense? Anthony, trying to work on keeping the triplet feel and swing. Yes, consistent swing is a real tricky thing. Yeah, what are you doing to work on that? Playing along to things, recording yourself? What are you doing for that, Anthony? Hey, Chris, when you receive a drum session work, does the work come from artists themselves or producers you have built a long-time relationship with? The answer to that, great answer, yes. Okay, great. Thanks, Martin. Chris, the answer to that is both. Producers come and go, I feel like, over time. I definitely feel like there are phases with producers where guys like to hire you for a while, and maybe they get tired of, or not tired of, I don't know. Sometimes they just find another guy or gal, and they move on. It's not always the case. There are some guys I've worked for 15 years, and there's some guys I'll work for heavily for like 2 or 3 years, and then they start calling somebody else because maybe they want something different, or maybe they start working on different kinds of music, or maybe they move. So yeah, it comes and goes. And then it definitely, a lot of it, I would say more of it comes from artists these days, just through word of mouth, people that you work for and they tell somebody else. And, I'm on that site called Sound Better, and oddly enough, I've been getting more work through that. I don't know why. I don't pay for it or anything like that. It just seems to be coming more through sites like that. I think maybe more people are just home recording and using that service, and the service is probably becoming more popular. So it's a bit of both, but I would say the majority is artists. And I think with producers, they call certain guys for certain things. There's a guy that, I like this guy that does this well, and I like this guy that does this well, and that's how it works. And those projects come in like, okay, this is a project for this group of people or whatever, Does that help, Chris? Anthony, playing along to things, yes. And working in the Jim Chapin book, Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer. Oh, for triplets, like with a metronome? Yeah. I've been doing this thing with my left hand just to get pull-outs a little more. All right, Chris, right on. With triplets, just doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, with a metronome. right? I might do that, but I might do it like with 4 bars. So triplets to 16th, just to make sure I get back into triplets in time and really know how to hit the triplet in time and stay in time. And it's helping my left hand out. It's mainly a left hand exercise, but that also seems to be helping. You know, one flaw in my playing is I tend to slow down at the end of a fill just by milliseconds, but especially with triplets for some reason. So it's da, 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 but you don't hear it that much, but you see it in Pro Tools. So I'm just trying to correct that. Exactly. Yeah. Transition from different rhythm. 16th notes or 8th notes to triplets. And then you really know that you're locked into that thing. I'm also a big fan of changing things a lot. So I don't kind of get in a hypnotized state or like a non-thinking state about what I'm doing. Brian Blade. Yeah. If I could just play with like Brian Blade, all would be good. I did so much practicing when I was young where I would just do the same thing over and over and over for 10 or 15 minutes and my mind would be elsewhere, and that's really just not helpful. So try to do things where I'm constantly thinking about what I'm doing. Right? Yeah. Want to get on a Brian Blade kick? What's everybody's Brian Blade's favorite record? Favorite Brian Blade record? Right. Exactly. Yep. It's funny. I heard a story about that happening with a pretty well-known session drummer recently, where my friend was playing bass on the session and they were playing a shuffle, and it would start as a shuffle, and you know, by 32 bars in, it was straightening out. The guy's, I don't know. I think there's a particular gig he was on for a very long time, and maybe he didn't have to think anymore. Kind of weird, but Freedom in the Groove by Josh Redman. I don't know that one. All right. One of my favorites is the first Fellowship record. I love that record. Man, that is incredible. And any of the Lanois stuff. That's my favorite Brian stuff. Anyone else? Brian Blade fans? Yep. I like all the Fellowship records, but for some reason the writing on that record really stands out to me. No one else here likes Brian Blade, huh? That's cool. What else we got, guys? What else we got? I don't know if I've ever done that Jim Chapin book. Stick control just never ends. Eric Harland is a beast. Yes, amazing drummer. He seems to be doing a lot of cool things online though right now too. Which I haven't really checked out, but I just see his posts and it seems like he's really got some cool things happening. Anybody else? What's everybody else working on besides recording? Or we can get back into more recording questions. How can you bury the beater versus wide open? Does it just depend on the genre of the song? Any tips on techniques or not burying? Yes. I actually have a YouTube video up about this, Chris. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Beater In versus Beater Out. Usually the only time I bury the beater is, I think it's usually a style thing. Usually if it's more like of a hip hop or R&B thing and it needs to be very staccato, sonically, like staccato sonically, and also, it's like a visceral feeling and also like a sonic thing, right? So I'm pretty conscious about it. Otherwise, it's always off. So I would say it's always off unless I'm doing something like that. And lately, with things I've been practicing, I'm really conscious of, trying to get my heel down and relax, but also have the beater come off. And that, to me, that's really about just balance point on the beater. I I spent a lot of time with that Jojo Mayer video where he talks about a lot of that stuff. Not necessarily that I can do all that foot stuff. I did work on it and I got it to a certain level, but it was, for me, it was really about balance on the pedal and to make sure I can get the sound that I want and being able to lay into it, but have the beater come off. Right? Make sense? Of course, Anthony. Of course. Did I ever go through a fusion phase, Ronnie? Yeah. Big time. Right on. Thanks, guys. Hey, guys, if you guys want to, like, drop me a little tip or something, there's those things down in the bottom right-hand corner. Buy coffee or whatever. Just for hanging out and giving knowledge. That would be rad. If anybody feels like doing that. Ronnie, yes. Massive fusion phase. So my first, like, introduction to jazz, when I was a teenager was, of course, Chick Corea Electric Band, Dave Weckl, anything that Dennis Chambers played on back in that day. So John Scofield, Blue Matter, or the Pick Hits live in particular. That was my introduction to that stuff. Anything that Vinny played on, we're talking late 80s here. And then all through college, total fusion, Weather Report. I love the Erskine era Weather Report stuff. To this day, I really think that stuff holds up. I still listen to that stuff. Jocko's solo records. What else holds up? I don't know. I don't feel like there's a whole lot. I mean, I was a Tribal Tech fan, but I can't listen to that stuff anymore. I do think Scott Henderson's an incredible guitar player, but musically, I don't connect with it anymore. Definitely a Wayne Krantz fan. Always have been. I'm 46, Martin. And yeah, I still am a huge Wayne Krantz fan. Any of the Zach Danziger stuff. I went to college with Keith Carlock. He's a friend of mine, and so any of that stuff with Carlock. Yeah, but I don't connect with it much these days. I mean, for me, it's really more about the writing. I don't know. I feel like the Weather Report stuff holds up, but a lot of the writing, it just doesn't connect with me anymore. What are you into, Ronnie? What do you like? Anybody else into fusion or was into fusion? Had a fusion phase? I love how it's a fusion phase. Everyone goes through a fusion phase, but then there was this club in LA in the early, when I moved here in the mid '90s called Lavi Lee, and I used to go there a lot and watch Scott Henderson. Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, Keith's a rad dude. So there was a club called Lavi Lee, and I used to go watch Scott Henderson play there a lot, which was really great. I actually got to sit in with them. I played a couple tunes with them one time, and that was a thrill. And the funny thing is, I think that was the end of my listening to Tribal Tech and all that. It was like a weird goal. Like, I sat in, I played with them, and I was like, hey, I'm done. Hey, Matt. What's up, dude? How are you? Does everyone know Matt Starr? One of the best killing rock drummers here in LA that I know. We've had some excellent hangs together. Matt gives great clinics. Total beast. Actually, I've been on an alt rock lately. Strawberry Girls. Oh, I don't know any of those bands. Are those newer bands, Anthony? I gotta check those out. Vinny's my favorite, also a cool guy. Yes, I had coffee with Vinny one time. He was extremely cool. And I also think he continues to just, I don't know, can you get better when you're Vinny? But it always feels like he is. There are new bands, okay. Yeah, he's just never-ending, a never-ending study, even to go back to the 80s and listen to him. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Matt, if you're still on, Martin down there says you got to know us through Warren. I just spoke to Warren the other day. Cranking out videos. Yep. Any other recording questions, dudes? Should we move into recording land? We don't have to, but I'll just keep rapping, but who's got great left hand exercises? Write them out in the text. You guys are talking about the other Matt. Oh, Matt, I'm sorry. Oh, the real Matt. I'm sorry, Matt. I'm sorry, dude. Okay, this Matt Starr that is on here is an excellent drummer also. And Matt has a studio not that far from me, and is making excellent sounds also. Sorry, dude. I'm really sorry. Matt's a great drummer. Matt, I don't know. I don't know that. Did you go to school somewhere, Matt? Not that it matters, but I don't know that. Anyway, Matt's a great recording drummer. We've gotten together a few times and learned and worked on some things together. He's fantastic. And he does these great gigs with these guys out of Toronto called totally blanking. They do cover. It's like we'll do a whole show. There's maybe up on my YouTube, like we'll play like Pink Floyd The Wall back like end to end. LACMA, right? Llama, right. Did you study with Mike Shapiro, Matt? Have we talked about this? So yeah, like the last show I subbed for Matt was we played The Wall, Pink Floyd, note for note, back to front. Pretty much no rehearsal, which was really nerve-wracking. But man, the band knows that stuff so well; it's really incredible. And Matt usually does those gigs. Yeah, Mike Shapiro was totally a mentor of mine. I don't know if you knew that, Matt. I used to carry his drums around back in the day, and I'd go to sessions with him. And he was a really great dude for me. Did you see GJ in the Drum Shack number 12 on YT? Big Sugar Band. BMO. You see GJ. Who's GJ? Yep. You might go back, man, like over 20 years now. Who's GJ? BMO. What's up? Is this a promo shot? What's up? Tell us what she's talking about. Gordy Johnson shared his mic method. Oh, I didn't see it. Nope. Is it something unique? Anyone? Let me know if you guys want me to get on a topic, and I'll start talking about recording topics. Phasing, more phasing. It's interesting. Okay. Hey, Victor. It's interesting. What's BMO? Can you be a little more? Is it a minimal miking thing, or a lot of mics, or what is it? Is it something we should be getting into depth in here about? Like Huey Dampton's kit. Okay, cool. Dead drums. Lots of dead drums. I was talking to an engineer the other day. Lots of M8Cs. Lots of mics. Oh, that's an I, right? You ever used a Noble and Cooley Alloy Classic snare, and how would you approach recording that snare? Anthony, I have not used it. I did own a really incredible Noble and Cooley snare for a few years, and I literally left it at a club one night and never saw it again, which is a real upsetting thing. But my guess is that's a very bright snare. Hi, Ronnie. Yes, I played some gigs with Chris Cornell. Yep. BMO, I got you. Mics. Yep. Lots of mics. Any cool stories about Chris Cornell? Sure. I'll give you my stories about Chris. First time I played with Chris was 2010? It might have been 2011. Yeah, I think it was 2011. My friend Pete Thorne. I was touring with Melissa Etheridge at the time, and Pete and I. Oh, I forgot about. Wait, sorry. I'll go back to the Chris Cornell thing. Let me answer this, Noble and Cooley. Okay. Tulip snare. Oh no, yeah. Okay, the Ally. I'm guessing it's a very bright snare. Can you tell me that, Anthony? It sounds like it's a super bright. 3 on snare. 3 mics on the snare? I think I'd explode. Oh, it went away. Yes, it's very bright. Okay. Okay, so do you use it mainly for like super ringy, loud stuff? Is it kind of a one-trick pony, or what are you wanting to get out of it? It seems to me that like it may be similar to like my Keplinger steel snare, where it's like a really great ringy snare and like tuned high. It works really well. Very versatile and sensitive. One trick. Okay. I mean, I don't know if I'd treat it any differently than anything else. I guess, like, I'll continue with my Keplinger theme. I don't necessarily. Wait, it's versatile. What is a one-trick pony? Meaning it's loud. Yeah, I don't treat my Keplinger or anything any differently. If I'm letting it ring and it's loud, then I make sure it's in tune with the track, first and foremost. Sometimes when things are that loud, obviously they're getting into a lot of mics, so you may have to bring the top and bottom snare down in the mix because maybe it's in the mono overhead a lot. Or play it quieter, mix yourself. Obviously can be very important. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So just to reiterate, I don't really treat any of my snares miking wise any different. I just make sure it's doing the thing that I want for the track. Is that helpful? Make samples of that Soundgarden snare. Yeah. I should make samples of everything, frankly, which I've been thinking about. So loud, Evans dry, hazy on the bottom. Yeah. If you don't want as loud, maybe. Hi, Julian. If you don't want as loud, maybe die-cast hoops, or as ringy. You know, it's die-cast hoops are slightly less vibrant. Okay, I'm going to get to this Chris Cornell question in a minute. Triple flange hoops, yeah. Extra ring, right? Yeah. What about the snare mic with great side rejection? Shure Beta 57. Yeah. Well, I would say anything that's cardioid or super cardioid, right? 57 is great. M201, Biodynamic M201. Yeah, try the diecast, man. Yeah, I think that's why 57s hold up, because they have a really great frequency range. And you know, it's just a little less bleed, you know, depending on how you point it. Yeah, I mean, you know, I have tried crazy things like using a 414 on a snare. Totally doesn't work unless you really want like a lot of bleed and everything. So yeah, 57 is definitely the go-to. What makes the Tama bell brass so special? All right, I'll tell you what I'm not an expert in bell brass, but this is what I know about a bell brass. And when I've played them, I do think the hype is real on an actual 80s Tama bell brass. Not many other remakes, in my opinion, hold up. But the thing a bell brass does, you can keep it tuned fairly low, but it still gets this crazy punch, and it still has a really beautiful high end that comes out of it, an attack that comes out of it that's not a pingy high end. I've often had a bell brass on as a rental on sessions, and I I swear to God, I don't even tune it. I mean, it's in tune, but I don't even change the tuning because it just seems, because of that frequency range on it, it just seems to work so well in so many tunes. But what I know, and I think I'm pretty sure this is fact. In the 80s, Tamba was making those bell brass with sandcast. They would sandcast them, and apparently to get the shell out of the sandcast, they had to crack the sandcast, so the cast is ruined. So that's why they're so expensive to make, and that's why technically nobody really makes them the same anymore, and that's why they're so expensive. This is what I've heard from fairly knowledgeable people, and I've also I've done a bunch of A-Being with Dave Elitch because he has 700,000 snare drums, and Dave, he has a few real bell brass and some others. In fact, his drum is really great, also very expensive, but his drum sounds really great. But yeah, there's something about like the actual Tama, 80s Tama bell brass that is special. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Again, guys, I'm doing this tip thing. If you guys want to drop me a cup of coffee or something for hanging out, dropping knowledge. Okay, Chris Cornell stories. All right, so first time I played with Chris was in 2011. He was doing this. We played at the Roxy Theater in LA, and he was doing it. I won't go too crazy in depth here. He was doing it for. He was doing it for his I shouldn't say for his attorneys, for the law firm that helps represent him. And so it was a private party, and basically, Pete recommended me. Chris was like, yeah, cool, great, get your guys. And we were told to learn, I don't know, 12 or 15 tunes. We rehearsed as a band. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate that, man. We were told to learn those tunes, and then we rehearsed as a band without Chris. And then the day of the show, we came in, we sound checked, and that was it. And then we just played the set without ever playing it with him, and it was really incredible. And one of my most vivid memories about that gig was playing the Temple of the Dog tune called "Reach Down," which, if you know it, it's kind of a slow, long, bluesy tune, and there's a big old wide, long guitar solo. And Jurgen Carlson was playing bass. Jurgen plays bass in Government Mule. So Pete played this really killing solo, and then Jurgen was just doing Jurgen things in a great, super musical, badass way. And and Chris just like pointed to Jurgen to take a solo, just pointed at him, and we just kept playing, and Jurgen took this bass solo, and Chris just had that like mic cord wrapped around his hand, and he was just crouching on the side of the stage watching us play this tune, and he was just totally into it. And I remember thinking, like, God, this guy is besides being totally amazed that I was on stage with him, playing these songs, he was just so open to what was happening, and his ears were open, and it wasn't like just some dude just playing through his songs and you guys follow me. It was totally interactive. It amazed me that he had that kind of openness, and and there was never much conversation with Chris, especially then. Like, he was, kind of a quiet dude. He knew Pete the best, so he would talk to Pete the most, but he was just totally cool. And that, we finished that gig, and we talked a little bit after the gig, and he just, that was it. And then we did a gig a few years later, and we were going to do another one, which never materialized, unfortunately. But, it was just, that was amazing. Just making me, just thinking about it kind of makes me sad because it was so amazing, and I was hoping to do more of it. So, Mr. Big Groove. I don't. You know what's funny? I don't know any Government Mule stuff. Yeah, Euphoria Morning. Those songs are just freaking incredible, man. And his last record that he put out, Higher Truth, I think those songs are just as good, man. Just different, really personal, really, really incredible. It's hard for me to listen to him. I love listening to him, but it also just hurts, you know. All right, another question. Yeah, I gotta check out some Government Mule stuff. Especially because Jurgen's so great. Jurgen also has a band called what are they called? With his wife. And the songs are really great. I just saw him play a couple months ago. In fact, it was in February, right before we all got shut down. I can't remember the name of the band right now, but if you look up Jurgen, you'll probably find that if you Google him. Really beautiful tunes. What else, dudes? Recording questions? More stories? You guys can chime in with anything. Whatever you're working on. We can talk about. Oh, BMO. I didn't get back to you. Lots of mics. You still there, BMO? Yeah. I'm gonna have to check out this recording. Yeah. You know, it's funny, like I only have 14 mic pre's. I think at one time I was recording with 14 mics, and usually I'm down to about 11 now, and that seems to be sufficient for most things I've been need sounds I need, because I feel that like at some point they all just become specialty mics, and I'm not really interested in getting to like miking top and bottom toms. That seems unnecessary to me. Maybe if I was a mixing engineer and I understood that a little more, but it seems unnecessary. Richard Spaven, the Self album as well. Okay, I'll check that out. I don't even know who Richard Spaven is. The Rudimental Ritual, working on it now. Hard to memorize it. No. I didn't. Frankly, I don't know it. I know the name, The Rudimental Ritual. I don't know it. One thing I really got into at one point was there's a drumline guy named Jeff Queen, who I actually went to school with also, and he has a video out on Hudson, and it's a lot of the drumline exercise, which is funny because when I was at North Texas, the drumline is a constant presence because they practice outside, and of course it's in Texas, so it's hot out. And anytime you're walking outside in the music school area of that campus, you literally hear drumline 24/7. It's always going. Guys practicing snare, or the snare line, or the tenor guys, or the drum line, or the bass drum line, whatever. You're always hearing it. Plus, I was in drumline, not playing snare or tenors, but I was a mallet guy in the pit. So I was always around that stuff. And there were always a lot of exercises happening that I would just hear, but I didn't always understand them. So I bought his video years later. There's definitely some cool things in there that I really got into for a while. I still use a lot, especially the triplet thing. And there's the 4-2-1. Hi, John. Thanks, man. Right? Kick 3 mic. Okay. I'll check it out, BMO. I'll check that out. I'm going to get some of that distortion going, John, at the Hotel Cafe. Okay, so the 4-2-1 thing, maybe this has something to do with the Rudimental Ritual. It's like this. So it's 4 bars, then 2 bars, then 1 bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So accent on the first, on the downbeat, then accent on the middle triplet, then accent on the third triplet for 4 bars. And then it goes to 2 bars, then it goes to 1 bar. So I'll just count and do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't count out loud and do it. So here's the twos. And then ones. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Right? 4, 2, 1. It's really great for timing, obviously thinking, and then working that around the kit. How would you record a drummer that likes to destroy the cymbals? Raise the overheads. Use super dark cymbals. Both great ideas. Yes. Unfortunately, maybe you have to use samples later if it's really that bad. I think the cymbal choice can be huge, because if the cymbals just give you a little less volume, smaller cymbals too can help, because the decay is going to be shorter. Decay will be shorter and they'll get out of the way more. Maybe not the sound you want, but it's an idea. If you can ask them to maybe hit a little lighter. So no, I don't think there's any harm in that. See if it works. Sometimes somebody doesn't know how to pull back from that, and that's understandable. But yeah, just move everything back and get the close mics really close. And then I guess one other thing is, like on the snare mic, you can try, wrapping it with some foam or whatever, just to give it a little more, let's pretend this is a 57, and the hi-hat's like up here, you can put a little cover over the top, maybe to try to prevent some bleed. Yeah, you could also go like maybe like full cardioid on the toms, use 57s, things like that, and just really try to point them away from cymbals. Anything you can do to just help your mix later. Yeah, but ask him, see if he can play lighter too. If he can do it and still do his thing, Gaff tape. Yeah, tape up the cymbals a little too. A couple pieces of tape that could help. You ever had to do that at the hotel, John? You ever done that to somebody? What else? Another question? Yes, you have? Wow. Hide the tape underneath. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, you obviously don't want to hit it, right? So, yeah. But I put a lot of tape on my cymbals. If I don't like the sound of it, I'll put tape on it. I'm not afraid. I have some cymbals that permanently have tape on them. Usually ride cymbals, but obviously one more thing would be deaden the cymbals completely, have them play it, and then overdub cymbals if you really need it that clean. The whole Queens of the Stone Age Eric Valentine thing. Total pain in the ass, but it'll work. What am I listening to? Good question. Okay, a record I should have listened to earlier, but discovered yesterday. Is a rapper who goes by D Smoke. And I met this guy a couple years ago on a gig. Really great dude. And then he actually won this Netflix. I don't know what the show is called, but I think it's like a rap battle Netflix show. And he's got a record out called Black Habits. D Smoke Black Habits. And I was checking that out yesterday. And it is number one, it's kind of timely, even though I know he's been working on it for a while. Number two, he has great influences. He's not just a rapper. He plays piano. He is a writer. I believe he did most of this stuff himself. He played me something in his car, and I think I recognize that tune on the record. he's a really great overall musician, speaks Spanish, raps in Spanish here and there. But there's Stevie Wonder influence. There's Kendrick Lamar influence. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So Jill Scott's on a tune. Snoop Dogg's on a tune. Pretty great record. What else am I listening to? I was listening to a lot of hip hop lately. I was going back and listening to Diggable Planets, like 90s stuff. Brazilian. I've been listening to some Brazilian samba stuff. I'll show you guys. I'm a total hack, but I've always wanted to be able to play pandeiro, so I'm trying to get this together. So I've been listening to a lot of Brazilian samba and just like a playlist in Apple Music, Samba Essentials. And then there's actually another playlist I was listening to. Oh, yeah. Tony Allen. A lot of Tony Allen lately. I'm kind of slightly obsessed with Afrobeat grooves and his whole thing lately. Because it's like Clyde Stubblefield meets Garibaldi meets Tony Allen. And it's just so light and slinky and groovy and badass that I'm kind of mesmerized by that stuff. You guys into Tony Allen? Like, he flew under the radar for me for so long that it almost embarrasses me that I didn't discover him until like a handful of years ago. And I think he's really underestimated as a great influential drummer that should be known more. Okay, John. Totally, dude. You have my email, right? I'd love to hear it. Oh man, yeah. There's some. Well, I can do a classical tambourine roll, like that. But that's from me growing up playing classical percussion. But, I've seen like these guys do this kind of thing. Some crazy stuff on YouTube, these guys. But I love the sound of this instrument, and I'd really like to be able to incorporate it into tracks that I do, maybe instead of tambourine, because I love the sound of these jingles. I've always loved these, and I've always wanted to try to use this as a snare, but it has so much tone, it doesn't really quite work the way I was in my head. I always wanted it to. But yeah, I want to get this together. Maybe over a few months, it'll actually sound decent. Who out there plays pandeiro? Anybody? Anybody tried? There was also a Brazilian ensemble when I was in school that I should have done. I never did it, but I was like, I want to go do that, but I was too busy doing other things. Okay. It is John. Yes. How you been, John? Guys, questions. Hit me up. Come on. What do we got? If there's some new people on here, please ask me anything you want. Recording questions, drumming questions, whatever. Just any interaction. And if you guys want to drop a tip, anybody want to drop a tip, give me a cup of coffee for dropping some information here. That would be fantastic. Bimo, what do? You engineer, drummer, both? I'm curious. And then we talked about where everybody is these days. Hey, Victor, did that help your question about the loud drummer? I think recording separately is a really great idea if it's really out of control. Might be a drag for the drummer himself, but it'll get your recording more clean. Who's out there? 10 people. Are we out of questions? Which Alanis tracks did you play on? Okay. I am on, there's an Alanis record called Jagged Little Pill Acoustic that came out in 2004, and I'm on that whole thing. I actually have to look. There's a record called So-Called Chaos that I am on some of it, but it's mislabeled. And I can tell you, it's Kenny Aronoff on most of it, but I'm on some of it. You're just a fan of music. Oh, so are you a drummer, Bimo? Or engineer? Or you just love music? Okay, So-Called Chaos. All right. Okay, so check this out. Turn my speakers on here. Okay, so this tune, 8 Easy Steps, that's me in the verse. And then I think Kenny Aronoff comes in on the chorus. I haven't heard this in a very long time. Yep. So that's me in the verse playing the maraca beat, and then it's Kenny Aronoff in the chorus. I think this one. Wow. Man, I'm sorry. I don't want to sit here and do this. Trying to remember. There's a few more that I'm on. Oh yeah, this tune called So-Called Chaos, the title track, that's me. Wow. I haven't heard these songs in so long, it's crazy. I really miss being with her. That was a really incredible time. So and then there's a couple on the record after this. Flavors of Entanglement. I think anytime there's real drums on that record, it's me. No, that's not true. I don't know, dude. There's a few on there on the record after. Actually, maybe no. I think it is all me. Yeah. So, hey, Julian, thank you, man. Appreciate that. You leaving? Okay. What kits did you use for the recordings, and how did you approach it, setup and recording? Okay. Well, so for that record, So-Called Chaos, that I was pointing at, I really only had, I just played my AOT kit, which was my touring kit at the time. And so that's what that is. And that was a very, kind of haphazard process. So yeah, that was just that. And then the Jagged Little Pill acoustic record, that's hard to explain because it was all my drums I owned at the time. I know I had my Slingerland Radio Kings there. I know I used a djembe as a kick for one thing with a pedal. Yeah, that AI kit was awesome. I sold it. Kind of shouldn't have, but I did. Need to get, it's time to move on, I guess. Yeah, that Jagged Little Pill acoustic record's all over the place. Cajon for a kick. Certain things. I had a Ludwig kit in there. It's a real mishmash, and I don't think I have pictures of that session either. That was before I was doing any of that stuff. So it's kind of all over the place. And the way I approached it, it was just this same way I approach everything now. Is just it's hard to explain a creative process, but hear the song and try to reimagine it a certain way. And especially for that record, because, trying to recreate, or not recreate, but play Jagged Little Pill songs, which is so iconic, but make them different and interesting. I was just really trying to go take chances and go out on a limb a little and just try to make good sounds. And that was really early for me. That was 2004. So that was really early in my recording career. So a lot of it was trial and error, and a lot of it was just, hey, I think I'm going to try this. I think it was a little more madness than method back then. Do I ever go back and listen to old recordings, or do you not because you hear something that you didn't like? I would say the latter. Actually, the more time goes on, I'm probably less critical because I forget about those things. But yeah, often I don't necessarily go back unless it's a record I really like. The funny thing is, that when I go back and listen to things that I've done in my studio on my own, and I go back, a couple years, it's usually the sonic thing that I'm hearing, and I kind of go, oh wow, I'm better now as an engineer and hopefully as a player too. And sometimes I'm actually surprised. I'm like, oh, that sounds really great, but yeah, I don't necessarily go back and listen a whole lot to things. Yeah. BMO, no, play acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and a bit of brass. Ooh, cool. No drums since I was in junior high. Right on. I love it. Where do you live, BMO? Warren just did it. Yes, I watched that, John. Pretty cool. Chris Fogel, who mixed Jagged Little Pill, was talking about track by track on Warren Hewitt's channel, and it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Wood hoops or just the steel hoops? It's funny, on my touring kit I had steel hoops except on the snare, and man, I wish I hadn't sold that snare. It was a 17-ply snare with wood hoops, and that thing was killing. And I think at a certain point I became a DW artist, and I just thought I'm never going to play this thing out, so I'm just going to let go of it. And to get more money, I sold the snare with it, but I wish I had held on to that snare. Drum travel fun. Ray is restoring a 70s Premiere kit for me soon. He still tinkers. Ray? Who's Ray? What did I miss? Ray. Julian, what a business tip on your realization you wish you had earlier in your career? Ooh, big question. A business tip. I think it's important to get paid what you think you're worth. And if you decide to do something that you think may be it's less than you're worth. One, if you decide to do it, you got to go in at 100%, which I think I've always done. So I'll talk specifically in terms of recording, not necessarily live stuff. How about that, Julian? So recording, I figured out a way to, if someone is going to lowball me, I will still do, obviously I'm going to do a really good job because I want them to be happy. And if I'm going to take their money, I'm going to do a good job. But I'm also going to have a time limit on it. And I'm, as far as revisions, or I need as much information up front so they can get what they want. But I'm also going to put a time limit on it. And, some things that may take longer, programming or adding percussion and things like that. But if the money's going to be lower than what, I would like to be paid, and I decide to take the gig, then, there's going to be a time limit on it, basically. So that's how I deal with that. Victor, I love all those drum breaks from the old vintage funk records. Can you get those tones? I think so. I've actually been meaning to do like an amen break thing for a long time. So much of those tones, obviously Victor worked, I'm kind of shooting in the dark of what specifically. Oh, Ray Ayotte, sorry. Yes. Is he still making? Yeah, he actually wasn't at Ayotte when I was there. That was after he had left. I'm blanking on the guy's name who I dealt with, but Ray Ayotte had already left, and I think was starting, forgetting, Tay drums when I was with Ayotte. Funk records. Are you talking 60s funk, 70s funk? What are you talking about, Victor, specifically? So yeah, I never met Ray. Yeah, Tay. I'm assuming you mean 60s drum breaks, right, Victor? To me, those are a lot of room sound, like whatever the room was, and then, kind of vintagey drums. And I feel like one of the most important things about those sounds and stuff is playing at the dynamic that those drummers were playing at, which is usually lighter. So tuning correctly, playing the correct volume, correct balance, and more than not less mics, and finding the sound in there, overdrive, whatever. I love those sounds though. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, amen break. But is that what you're talking about, Victor? That era of stuff? I also think those tones are super useful sometimes for, adding a palette to a tune, whether, you could use it as a double drum sound against a bigger sound, or sometimes like a verse, separate verse if you're really going nuts on a tune, and having multiple drum sounds going, Drum travel fun. Is Ray? I'm assuming you're in Canada then. If he's working on a kit for you, is he in Vancouver still? What was the highlight of drumming so far? Best memories and stories. That's a loaded question, dude. How do I answer that? There's a lot. In a big macro, I would say, my time with Alanis touring and recording. I had a certain era was recording a lot with Glenn Ballard and some really big artists in there, and really learning the studio side of things. That was a great era. Of course, my gigs with Chris Cornell. Thanks, Victor. Appreciate that, man. Those are kind of the big things, and being able to look back. I've been in LA for 23 years now, 24 years. So being able to look back and see the things that I've done, been able to do is pretty awesome, because, you move to LA, you move to a city like this, and you kind of don't know, if you're going to be able to hang, if you're good enough, all those insecurities. And, yep. Rest in peace, Chris. All those insecurities of like, am I going to be able to have a career? How do I meet the right people? How do I get where I want to be? So I guess maybe the best way to answer that, BMO, is just say that, like, I'm able to look back and think that, like, I've made a living playing drums for like 24 years, which is pretty awesome. And I continue to get to do it. And I'm at the point where I feel confident enough where I can, like, give back like this and try to share knowledge. And I think that's pretty cool. My parents are music educators. My dad's well known in certain worlds. He's a classical saxophonist. And so I think just growing up in that environment, it's a bit of it's in my blood because of that. So to get to the point where I feel like I actually have something to give back is pretty cool. We got anything else? It'd be time to sign off. I have a track to get done, and I'm gonna try to make a YouTube video for you all before tomorrow. I think I'm gonna do a snare video. I think a lot of you guys have dug those, right? I haven't done one of those in a few weeks. I think I'm gonna dig out a snare and do one of those. Requests on a snare. Request on a snare. All right, how about let's do this. Let's do it like this. Favorite cheap mic on drums, like any budget or retro old pieces. Hi, Chris. Favorite cheap mic, a 57. I I don't know if you saw, but I put a video up last week, 21 sounds with 157. It was surprising to me. Thanks, BMO. Right on, man. Drum traveling. Right on. Which one of these snares do you want me to demo this week? Pick the color. Oh, wait. I did the red Aot. I did the Ludwig. Maybe I'll do the purple Aot. How about that one? Big purple Aot at the bottom, since we've been talking Aot drums down there. This one? Yeah? Any votes? I like those vids. Thanks, Anthony. Saw that, dug it. Actually made me do the same. It was also pretty interesting for sure, right? I know. I was kind of astounded what you can do with a 57, frankly. Yeah, I mean, I do. It is cool to have a mic that's like an old cheap mic that's crunchy and whatever, you know. The plastic one. All right, I'll do a Mastro one soon. And so it does one thing. I think I'm gonna have to make a video of snares that do one thing, and that'll be a video. I gotta get my purple Aot. You got it. I gotta get my my Kent snare fixed because that's a one-trick pony, literally a one-trick pony. So I'll do those all in one. How about that? All right, y'all. Thanks for the tips. If anybody else wants to leave a tip that hasn't, that would be awesome. I'm gonna sign off. If you guys are yeah. Victor. Yep, 60s. Yeah. So hopefully you heard my answer, Victor. I'll wait for your answer. Did you hear my answer? Yeah, thanks. Lots of good info. Desert Island Kit, 3-piece. 3-piece? Desert Island Kit. Does that mean nobody's on the island except me and I can play really loud? What does that mean? Do I have a Desert Island Kit? Someday I want a real actual Gretsch round badge, 18, 12, 14. I don't know, that might be it. Desert Island Kit, my Ludwigs. My mid-60s Ludwigs, because they can kind of do anything. But if I'm on a desert island in the middle of nowhere, nobody gives a shit. So that's probably the least of my concerns. That's some snarky bullshit. Sorry. All right. Yep, James Brown. Yeah, one mic. Hey, check out that. I did the Funky Drummer thing. It's all one mic. Check that thing out. I think it's pretty good, if I may say so myself. But I think that's really the basis for a lot of those sounds. My feeling is that, you know, because of the era and also whatever, I think those guys were just playing and they were just throwing a few mics up. Sweet kicks and room tones. Yeah. Yeah, but not much kick in those James Brown records, right? Not much kick. A lot of high end. Not what we're used to these days. All right, y'all. We'll see you again in another week or two. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the questions. Spread the word. If you guys can share any of these videos, that would be great to people. Just get some more views and all that. Grow this channel. It would be awesome. Okay, y'all. Take care. Be safe. Stay safe. Stay healthy. All right. Thanks, Anthony. See you guys.